Mainly just want to write this down before I forget. I am not a short story writer or anything. I am not going to do some green text. I just want to get this off my chest and bring some content to the board. So to preface, I am not that interested in aliens, though recently I watched the UFOs and Bob Lazar documentary, and a couple of other recent alien podcasts. And not too long ago, maybe 4 months, I was in Arizona to visit my friend and I witnessed some strange UFO occurrences that I am not going to go into detail over. That's a story in of itself, but basically I saw some weird lights that can't be easily explained away, in an isolated corner of the desert with just me and my friend around. Since then I have been a little less skeptical, but I was never a keep watching the skies guy. Well, last night I had a dream. I dreamed on and off that I was going through a couple of strange interrogation rooms with FBI-style government agents interviewing me and doing psychological tests. It was all extremely vivid. It was one of those dreams that feel real, not like a dream. And oddly enough I am getting chills writing about it. I suppose these were men in black types, but I didn't think about that in the dream. In the dream I was curious about the tests, and also how I got there. But like how dreams are, I didn't really think about that too much. At one point I was in a van hooked up to some electrical equipment, in another exploring some streets. But the main part I remember is an office-type complex with various interrogation/interview rooms. I go into a room to be tested by a psychologist lady, and I am hooked up to a lie detector style thing. I don't remember the details, but what I did or said in the room caused the interrogator/psychologist to go insane. She was babbling and her mind was broken, I could somehow telepathically tell. The agents liked that, and they came in and started talking to me on a more professional level, more like a colleague. At this point they iterated very carefully, I remember this vividly, "You will hear a frequency signal and you will wake up." And I said okay, got it. Then they led me to a very dark room off in the corner. I got sort of scared. They saw that and reminded me about the signal and were basically like, "It's fine, let's go." So I step into the room. What I saw in that room was one of the scariest things I have ever seen in a dream. It immediately became like a night terror level fear and I was just frozen. I remember when I was a child I would sprint past the windows in my house at night. For whatever reason I was scared an alien face would pop up in the window. Those memories have a very particular sort of fear with them, not a normal fear like oh an angry dog or the cops are behind you or even it might be skin cancer. This was a primal sort of hunted, mystical, otherworldly fear that is hard to explain. Point being, this is the type of fear I felt. What was in that room is what you see in the photo. Sitting on a chair in the dark, in the center of the room, hooked up to the same electrical equipment was a gray alien, but distinctly female, with hair slightly humanoid features, but very pale. Those huge pupil-less eyes glowed a creamy white in the darkness. They spoke to me telepathically, and I immediately knew this was an alien, a gray alien. It didn't tell me much. I am in college for computer science and have been studying math a lot, so when it read my mind it saw that. I remember them just sort of letting me know without actually saying, just like thought forms in my head. They told me that they were glad I was doing math, they liked that. Then they saw trig memories in my head and said I am called a sinusoidal type or I have sinusoidal features, referring to themselves and their alien race. I still have no idea what that could have meant. That's partly what makes me think it is all just a really crazy dream. I know what sign is in trig but no idea how that would relate to an alien's features. At this point I started getting really scared and having a panic attack. In most dreams your personality and identity seem slightly different, like you have powers you didn't have or you are braver, faster etc. In this dream, I seemed to be very distinctly myself, and I started having a panic attack just like I do when I have high levels of anxiety in the waking world. It was very distinct how the details were similar, my breathing, things I was saying etc. The alien seemed to sort of mentally sigh and was like, okay, that's enough, he's freaking out again. And I seemed to get a hint from the thoughts that this was not the first time we had been through this, it was more like the first time I remembered or got this far without freaking out. Then I heard a loud frequency ringing, and boom, I woke up in my bed. But when I woke up I was shaking and really scared. It took me a while to come to myself. It was almost like the beginnings of sleep paralysis. That was last night, and all today I have just felt sort of off. Hopefully someone can shed some light on this or offer some wild theories. I know I have heard similar experiences, which is what's weird. Included is a quick sketch I made of what the female alien looked like in the room. I will post the UFO story next. I know I said in the first story I wouldn't go into detail. I now think these incidents may be related. So I am going into vivid detail. This incident took place in March of this year. I went to go visit my friend who is going to college in Phoenix, Arizona. It was just a simple trip, and we planned to drive my car around, shoot guns in the desert, eat food and get drinks. Now I also have another friend who is much older than us. My friend and I are in my 20s, but older friend is in his 60s. He has been a long-time friend of my father's and I also enjoy talking to him. He is surprisingly fit for his age and has a sort of old-timer's wisdom. I will call this older friend F. He lives in Arizona too, a little further up from the college area. I end up visiting him during one day of the trip, when my other friend is busy. F decides to go hiking and take our guns with us to go shooting. So at his point, it is just my friend F and I in his truck. Now where we end up is a popular part of Phoenix called Saguaro Lake. A stretch of the road around the river that leads off the lake was locked off, I suppose due to the coronavirus. So F parks his truck at the small parking lot there. This heavy metal gate is impossible to get a vehicle through, but we decide to just go the rest of the way on foot. F takes his .45 revolver in a hip holster, and I take my AK with a 30-round clip. Not for defense of any sort, I just like shooting bullets in the Arizona desert, it makes me feel like a cowboy or something. After wandering around 2 miles down to the small riverbed, this part of the Salt River is extremely narrow, we walk around there. It seems like people have not traveled down this road in years, and we now see why it was locked off. This road, which is surrounded by high cliff of at least 100 feet, has collapsed as sections of the cliff sloughed off. A massive boulder has smashed through part of the road, creating an interesting landform. We stop here and sit on top of the boulder, F smokes a cigar, and I open fire with Maniac and shoot down into the riverbed. F also fires a couple pistol shots. It was starting to get dark, and during this time period of 45 minutes or so, it becomes pitch black. I reload my rifle, and we start to hike the 2 or so miles around this beaten old highway. I find old rusted soda cans that have 80s style labeling, a sign people have not been here in many years. I also notice a lack of footprints. Furthermore, the fact I fired a rifle into the riverbed would be a sign that this area has no people around. The parking lot has been empty, and we haven't seen a soul since around 2 p.m. that afternoon. Now, we make it back around a bend in the road, and stop to just look at the stars. It's a particularly dark and starry night. I can see the occasional shooting star in fact, and at this point we start to bullshit about life and stories etc. I get a strange, peaceful and eerie feeling that is hard to explain. I remember dreams I had of spaceships showing up in the sky. Oddly enough, I get the same feeling I had in the dreams as I look at this Arizona sky. Almost a sense of déjà vu or premonition, but also peaceful and magical. At this point I don't see any sort of anomalies, or even mention this feeling. We get up after about 30 minutes of rest and begin to finish the final stretch of the hike. After a decent hike, we reach the last part of the road. It's this large, uphill slope that leads to the locked gate discussed earlier. Once again we see no people, no car headlights, or for that matter, life of any sort. but I notice F is looking at the sky again. He mentions that one of the stars is moving, and he sounds oddly agitated. I thought this was strange, because F is known for having a sort of stoic attitude. I mean, for one thing, he is hiking miles in the desert at 60+ years of age. A description of him: he is an extremely skinny, brown-skinned man. He looks like a desert Indian or something in my mind. He is the last person I expected to sound exasperated or excited. So I give him the benefit of the doubt and peek upwards. For a long time I stare at this star, that is particularly bright, and I notice that it is moving. It has a pattern to the movement. It shifts up, down, left, and then shifts to the right. It also seems to dance and wiggle along an axis or fulcrum point. At that point I am watching it, and it makes larger and larger movements. It will go from dancing to extremely quickly darting off into another section of sky. At other times it will look just like a regular star, albeit brighter. I realize this is not a satellite, and definitely not a plane of any kind known. At one point I watch it dart away. A note about myself: I am much less stoic than F. I tend to get anxious or excited in some moments of stress. When I see it dart I yell, "Holy shit!" F and I realize we are seeing some sort of phenomenon, possibly a UFO. I calm down and begin looking studiously around the sky. It is at this point that I notice a critical thing. The star we have been watching is not the least of a group of bright lights that are all repeating similar patterns. I point this out to F, and he agrees and notice the movements. We simply watch in awe for a time, as the lights begin to make all sorts of strange motions and different colors. I also realize this is definitely a strange occurrence, because F begins yelling out loud. I have never seen him raise his voice before. Around 3 or 4 these stars begin to come together. They form in to create a triangular pattern. Inside the triangle created by that pattern I see a chilling sight: the sky is lighter than the surrounding darkness outside of the edge. Thus, it creates the effect of some sort of triangular craft, one that is lit up around the edges as the inside is slightly cloaked in some way. Looking at this I can't even yell out, it's just too strange to comprehend. After this brief pattern the lights again break off into separate dancing stars. After around 20 minutes of watching these shapes they seem to relax and calm down. We also relax and begin to talk about the experience. We may have just witnessed UFOs, etc. We walk up the final sloping stretch and stand close to the gate. It is at this point the strangest experience yet occurs. A huge bright ball, not a star, because it's far too huge. It is as bright as the point of a lighthouse tower or car headlight. This light turns on in the parking lot, just like a car or some light that is sat in the parking lot. But unlike a car headlight, the light creates a huge orange orb. Now this light in the parking lot turns off, and another light of a similar style turns on. Except this light isn't in the parking lot. This light is on top of a rock mesa that is about 5 miles across the canyon in front of us. It sits there on the rock, looking just like a car that has parked itself on top of the mesa. Which is the oddest thing, because we know there is no way in hell a car could get on top of this steep bluff, miles across a canyon. Also we just saw it over in the parking lot. At this point I take up my rifle and I say if it comes towards us I am going to shoot it. I will shoot some aliens tonight. F sees me sort of panicking and gets me to calm down. I realize what I said is crazy, and I am like, okay, I am not going to shoot at anything, I was just saying that. Now I say, we should get our phones out and start recording, having come to my senses a bit. All the while this light has been sitting across the bluff, with almost headlight-style lights shining on us. But as F turns on his phone to record, the oddest thing happens. Almost immediately as the phone is brought out, the light shoots up off the cliff, and in sync with F's recording, the light passes over our heads, and makes a droning sound. We now see on the recording that this is somehow a plane. It's moving slowly, it's making a droning noise, and it passes over looking just like some sort of small passenger plane. On the video it's simply a video of a plane passing over us. And I watched this slow-moving plane pass out over our heads and over the city lights, making a strange sort of droning engine noise the whole time. That was the first plane we had ever seen fly over this area, and it was also the last one seen that night or the next day. We slept in our cars in the parking lot. And I reiterate with each other what just happened, mainly that a huge light just lit up in the parking lot, then switched to the cliff, shone lights on us, then somehow took off as a passenger plane, with the entire light system looking completely different and making noises, whereas before it was silent. This is seriously stunning and we don't know what to make of it. We discuss the events as we walk up to the car. Watch some more of those dancing stars, though they are starting to die down and only move slightly along an axis, as if they are attached by a string. After what we saw on the cliff, these are much less impressive anomalies. We see no one the rest of the night or have any other seriously strange occurrences, and we calm down and end up sleeping in the car and leaving the next morning. Since then I haven't known what to make of it, or really given it much more thought, but I definitely take UFO stories a little more seriously. I have thought it could also be some sort of military psyops, secret craft. A craft that can disguise itself as a regular plane. That would be a powerful tool. The skeptical side of me also thought maybe we were confusing a plane with UFOs. But that doesn't explain how it sat on top of the bluff the whole time. It wasn't on that cliff during the day. It also doesn't explain the strange lights we saw. I have since looked up UFO videos on YouTube. The lights we saw are almost identical to many of these recordings. The recent dream I had has made me rethink the entire situation. Especially since the feeling, I guess you could call it, that I had during this dream, is the same feeling as during the UFO situation, that magical feeling I spoke about as I was sitting watching the stars before the incident.